The black magicians have their mysticism, and they always firmly believe that they walk on the good path. No black magician believes that he walks on the evil path. The path of black magic is a broad way filled with vices and pleasures, but the ultimate end is total loss.
Worship enters into it, but as something that you choose to do to get the benefit of it. The Easterners have a term for it called bhakti yoga. It means the yoga of worship, but yoga is a system. So if we worship a deity, a goddess, or a god or something like that, we're doing it for a purpose. The Lemegeton and the Greater Key of Solomon, these handbooks of magic were attributed to Solomon for two reasons. Number one, he was the great magician, the legendary magician, and number two, these people were afraid to put their real names on the books because they'd get burned at the stake. Solomon is, of course, originally the king of Israel in the book of Kings in the Bible. And he lived around 800 BC, and he was the great king who built Solomon's temple. So now from his legend, if you will, arises the Masonic fraternity, and also arises the legend of Solomon the great magician. He supposedly mastered the demons and the spirits, and as the Arabians say, the jinn. I didn't bother to do a closing pentagram or to close the circle or to banish the spirit or anything like that. So we just left. And then 3 hours later, she grabbed me out of a sound sleep and sunk her fingernails into me and woke me up, and she was staring up at the ceiling, and she said, "There he is." And I had to drag her back into the circle, and we had to exorcise that spirit.
Magical rituals weren't only prominent in Babylon, or later in the Kingdom of Judah. It was also very much part of ancient Egypt, and was also part of their religious practices. Ancient Egyptian religion was a complex system of beliefs and rituals which was integral to ancient Egyptian society. It centered on the Egyptians' interaction with a multitude of deities who were believed to be present in and in control of the forces and elements of nature. The myths about these gods were meant to explain the origins and behavior of the forces they represented, and the practices of Egyptian religion were efforts to provide for the gods and gain their favor. Formal religious practice centered on the pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Although he was a human, the pharaoh was believed to possess a divine power, and was considered a god by virtue of his kingship. He acted as the intermediary between his people and the gods, and was obligated to sustain the gods through rituals and offerings so that they could maintain order in the universe. Therefore, the state dedicated enormous resources to the performance of these rituals and to the construction of the temples where they were carried out. Individuals could also interact with the gods for their own purposes, appealing for their help through prayer or compelling them to act through magic. As the mystery religion spread all over the world from Babylon, they found expression in all countries of the ancient world with only a change in the names of the gods and slight variations in the rituals. While the mystery religions were practiced in all of the countries of the ancient world, it was in Egypt where centuries of devotion developed them to their highest degree. According to Mason Manly P. Hall's book, Freemasonry, the ancient Egyptians, and I quote, "It is now generally acknowledged that the Egyptians, of all the ancient peoples, were the most learned in the occult sciences of nature. The wisest of philosophers from other nations visited Egypt to be initiated in the sacred mysteries by the priests of Thebes, Memphis, and Hermopolis. There is indeed, as we have established, a very definite link between the Egyptian mystery religion and the Masonic Lodge. This link can be readily established from the words of Masonic authors, and testimony can be provided to remove all reasonable doubt. In the book, The Meaning of Masonry, by past Provincial Grand Registrar, W.L. Wilmshurst, we find the statement, and I quote, "I am acquainted, for instance, with an Egyptian ceremonial system, some 5,000 years old, which taught precisely the same things as Masonry does." In the book, Freemasonry: Its Hidden Meaning, by George H. Steinmetz, we find the statement, and I quote, "Regardless of the origin of the modern lodge, or of the name Freemason, we can, after freeing the symbolism of modern adaptations, discern in Freemasonry the outline of the teachings of the ancient mysteries of Egypt." In the same book, Mr. Steinmetz makes the statement connecting Freemasonry and the Egyptian mysteries. And I quote, "If the symbols can be consistently interpreted in this manner, throughout the 3 degrees we have confirmed Freemasonry to be the reincarnation of the ancient mysteries of Egypt." 33-degree Mason Manly P. Hull relates the efforts of early Masonic historians to link Hiram Abiff to the Egyptian mystery religion. Early Masonic historians such as Albert Mackey, Robert Fregould and Albert Pike were of a single purpose in their efforts to establish a definite correspondence between the Hiramic legend of Freemasonry and the Osiris myth as expounded in the initiatory rituals of the Egyptians. From the Lost Keys of Freemasonry by 33rd degree Manly P. Hull, man is a god in the making, and as in the mystic myths of Egypt on the potter's wheel he is being molded. Unas eats magical charms, behold, Unas eateth of that which the red crown sendeth forth, he increaseth, and the magical charms of the gods are in his belly. The following quote is a comment on the texts about King Unas by the translator of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, each Wallace Budge, the notion that, by eating the flesh, or particularly by drinking the blood, of another living being, a man absorbs his nature or life into his own, is one which appears among primitive peoples in many forms. It is indeed an accurate assessment that these murders in the Unas texts were performed in a ritual and religious manner for the purpose of obtaining the life force or energy force of the victim. Not only was this the purpose of these ancient Egyptian texts, but it is also the purpose behind modern Satanism. This common underlying purpose can be seen by comparing these texts and their assessment with the words of Master Satanist, a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Grand Master, and a 97th degree the Rite of Memphis, of Aleister Crowley. He writes, and I quote, "The blood is the life." This simple statement is explained by the Hindus by saying that the blood is the principal vehicle of vital prana. It was the theory of the ancient magicians that any living being is a storehouse of energy varying in quantity according to the size and health of the animal, and in quality according to its mental and moral character. At the death of the animal, this energy is liberated suddenly. For magical purposes, the animal should therefore be killed within the circle, or the triangle, as the case may be, so that its energy cannot escape. An animal should be selected whose nature accords with that of the ceremony. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. Those magicians who object to the use of blood have endeavored to replace it with incense. But the bloody sacrifice, though more dangerous, is more efficacious. And for nearly all purposes human sacrifice is the best. Here is an undercover footage of a goat being sacrificed inside a pentagram, in a Masonic lodge in Turkey, for a high degree initiation.